In this time of social distancing amid the global pandemic, there are many stories that help us to cope. The image of the shepherd, the image of the lamb are one of them. And a bit of history and a perspective on this special continuing Easter reflection on the Accessible Faith Project. Hi there, I'm John, and welcome to the Accessible Faith Project. If you're new here and looking for insights into the Bible, faith, and history in ways that engage your brain, then please hit subscribe and that little bell icon so you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. During this time of physical distancing, as we respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been mobilizing the resources of the Accessible Faith Project to provide worship resources beyond the educational ones we normally do. This video is one of those. During times of crisis, both personal, national, and global, there are certain things that we retreat to give us comfort. The short 6 verses of the 23rd Psalm is one that is very familiar to many, even in a largely secular culture. Chances are you've heard the phrase, "The Lord's my shepherd," and perhaps you could even complete and finish the whole thing. The 23rd Psalm is arguably the best known passage from the Bible. It provides perhaps one of the most comforting images. For many of us, the sheep and the shepherd imagery was what we were raised on as children, and it gives us a sense of security when we grapple with our struggles in life. Yet in the same way, with well-known, dearly loved images such as this, there can be a thing as being too familiar with it. But I think it's good for us to come back to these old standbys, these foundational images of our faith that give us comfort, not just to latch onto, but to see why they are so powerful even all of these years later, especially in times of crises. Now, there are few images as uplifting as that of the Good Shepherd. It evokes a mental image of perfectly manicured green meadows, radiant blue skies, still pools of crystal clear water, and little white dots of sheep covering the countryside. It's better than postcard quality. But that's the trouble. When this was written, everyone who heard it knew that shepherding was not an idyllic, quiet pastoral postcard. It was a dirty, smelly, and often thankless job, working with extraordinarily stupid and skittish animals who could drown themselves if panicked and go the wrong way. Those who heard it the first time would hear, "The Lord's my shepherd," and likely felt a connection to God who is willing to get dirty hands in caring for the sheep. The Gospel of John goes even further, declaring that the shepherd is willing to sacrifice his life for the safety of the sheep. This is a dirtier image, but much more reassuring than the picture-perfect postcard. God is already with us in the midst of life, amid all of the dirt and the hard lessons that are part of life. The Lord is my shepherd, the one who is willing to be with me in the muck of life to guide me when I'm scared and skittish. But there's also this other image, the lamb. And while it fits sheep and shepherds, it seems to be weird to talk about Jesus as the lamb when we've just portrayed him as the good shepherd. But I think that's the point. The book of Revelation plays with this to reveal something to us about the nature of God. When John first introduces the Lamb in chapters 4 and 5, it almost comes across as a Monty Python sketch. It's all in the build-up. There is this magnificent scene of heavenly worship, images of 4 living creatures and elders surrounding the throne of God from which lightning and thunder flashes. As the scene focuses in on the throne, there's a scroll in the right hand of God and a call for anyone who is worthy to open it. This one is called the Lion of Judah, the Root of David, the one who conquers. It is a strong and powerful image. Now, we already know this is going to be Jesus. With all of this buildup, we are expecting a powerful, shining, kingly figure to stride onto the scene, grab that scroll, and begin dispensing its contents with some force. Yet when the camera finally focuses in, it's a lamb. A cute and fluffy lamb with big, beady, innocent eyes. John masterfully crafts the language to make the lamb even more vulnerable and innocent than it already is. Translated from Greek, a better equivalent is like lambikins or something like that. Now, we can live with the image of the shepherd because even that exudes a gentle, protective strength. But a helpless newborn lamb? We don't expect this because we're looking for something strong, something powerful. Our natural reaction in this scene is say, okay, very funny. Where is he really? Where is the Lion of Judah? Where's the Root of David? After all this buildup, where is he? What, is he behind the lamb? No, he is the lamb. And that's precisely the point. John reveals Christ in one of the most helpless images imaginable. And yet, in this vulnerability, we begin to learn something about God's strength. Revelation holds up the Lamb as a proclamation of hope, saying, "For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of the water of life, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes." It is the only place in the entire Bible where lamb and shepherd appear in the same passage, and they are brought together and they make an incredibly powerful point. Using the most vulnerable image imaginable, John shows that even evil in its strongest cannot overcome God's weakest. The shepherd becomes the lamb becomes the shepherd as one of us, appearing even more helpless than the weakest of us. And this shows us God's unlimited strength. Yet when we think about it, that is precisely what the Easter message is all about. God's strength revealed through what everyone else judges to be weakness and vulnerability. But there's also something else here that is even more heartening and more powerful than the image of God as shepherd alone. As reassuring as the shepherd image is, it can still be distant. The guy with the crook over there someplace looking out for the dangers, protecting the flock with the rod and staff. But the image of the Lamb is far more intimate, one who is in our midst, who is far closer than we can ever know and leads us as one of us. The problem is, in 21st century North American culture, we have come to value strength and resolve, toughness and personal moral fortitude. Political leaders are afraid to show any sort of vulnerability because maybe they or we are afraid that they cannot protect us from the evils of the world. It has gone so far as officials seem to be afraid of admitting their mistakes, charging on ahead, staying the course, and unfortunately, it seems to be running into much more trouble. We have a case study of this unfolding in real time in certain places in the world as the pandemic continues to take its toll. Ironically, the people and places who admit to vulnerability are the ones who seem to be weathering the storm the best. Perhaps we need a reminder that even Winston Churchill admitted to personal vulnerabilities and mistakes. After all, part of the Christian claim to faith is that it is precisely in those moments of vulnerability that we realize God's power. In this time of pandemic, this feeling of vulnerability is all around us, and that's okay. God fundamentally understands what it is to be weak and helpless. Of course, that's what the cross represents. But Easter also reminds us of what real strength is, God's strength. That once it was all said and done, once Jesus had become the weakest and most vulnerable, like the Lamb, God showed us that not even death itself has the final say. Easter morning teaches us that. The shepherd is the Lamb is the shepherd. It is a paradox, to be sure, but one that has such a depth of meaning that it can be a great comfort to us in the midst of whatever we find ourselves facing in life. It is something that even 20 centuries later, even in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of a pandemic, we are still learning that. Amen.